I do think now we just heard a lot of horrible shit. However, I do think that we do have to talk about what this is going to mean for the future of FACEIT and ESL, because there could be some good that comes out of this, obviously. Like, this wasn't done for no reason. And with this money, there are going to be immediate benefits to the community that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And I think Mick should talk about that. And also, later on, we need to discuss, especially for Counter-Strike fans, the ESL monopoly was already pretty bad in that scene. And we'll discuss it. Because
let's just maybe say interesting projects. I think saying good in this context is a bit gross.
Sure,
like, you know fair. What? They are doing all those like human rights violations and murdering people, but there is good that's come from it. Look, a new tournament in Counter-Strike. That's not really good in any kind of moral sense, you know.
That's fair.
Let's say interesting projects that weren't possible before.
All right. So, Mick, what is this? Let's start with what is the structure of the new company? And like, let's talk about, I think you should talk about the independence from the actual fund here, because it's not, it's not like Uber is being puppeteered by this fund.
No, exactly. So the company stays independent. So they basically bought into the vision that we have for, you know, the company and the future of esports, and they bought into our values as well, which are not negotiable, and that was clear from the very beginning. So that said, in terms of the structure, ultimately it's a merger with ESL. There's going to be a new management team with Nicolo and Craig being co-CEOs.
Hey, let's be clear. Company. Sorry, let me unpack this. So Ralph Reichert, who is in charge of ESL, is now moving onto the board in an advisory role. Nicolo is the CEO of FACEIT, for those of you who do not know, and Craig is Craig Levine, who you may know as Torbull. He's an old OG esports person who is in charge of ESL as well. ESL executive. I don't know. Actually, no. Was he CEO of ESL? What was his former title?
CEO of ESL.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So exactly, that's going to be the management team, and then obviously the teams are coming together. Effectively, nothing is going to change immediately in terms of like teams and structure. We already started some cooperation, and we're going to intensify that over time. But ultimately, so the goal is to take the best of both companies, right? And the plans are pretty ambitious. So the idea is to actually scale up and have more people, more resources joining the company pretty quickly and pretty soon. In terms of like impact that people should expect and can expect, overall, the idea is obviously to invest in the scene and take a bit of a longer term view on the type of investments that we do. So what does that mean exactly? For example, if you're under pressure to deliver results as a company, you might think that the best thing to do is to create another tournament, have another competition, have more hours of content, right?
That's in ESL's case, we use content in quotes, content, but yes.
And so that's not going to be the logic at this point, because effectively we're not here to try and look at the next quarter, but we're here to try and look at what's going to have the most impact on, let's say Counter-Strike, for example, which is a game that we all care a lot about. What's going to have the best possible impact on Counter-Strike in the next 5 years and the next 10 years, right? So what are the areas where we need to invest? For example, and we did a blog post on this, people can go and read with all the details. So for example, with Counter-Strike, we're going to be focusing on doubling down and investing more on the grassroots level, right? So what's going to happen to FACEIT in ESEA? Obviously, that's where a lot of the players, a lot of the fans are playing today. First of all, like I've seen a lot of questions online. It's not going anywhere. Like we're not going to shut down ESEA or anything like that. The two products are going to exist, and they're actually going to be working together. Where effectively we're taking the best of FACEIT, what FACEIT is known for. So like solo, the matchmaking, FPL type product, and we're taking the best of the ESEA, which is team leagues and cash cups, so team-based competition, and we're further investing into these programs, both to amplify in regions where we already have a strong presence, but also like to support regions that need more investment. Like for example, North America in this moment.
So to be clear, to explain to people who don't know, who don't come from Counter-Strike and who don't know what the FACEIT platform is and why this is important. So ESL operates the majority of the events and has a lot of partners that have bought into their system on the esports calendar. And then FACEIT is a platform on which people play. So if you're not used to Counter-Strike, they offer anti-cheat, better server experience, matchmaking service, amateur competition and tournaments. And so basically what this does is it unites the kind of aspiring amateur scene and that platform on which millions of people play Counter-Strike and other games, but mostly Counter-Strike, and then unites it with an actual like massive professional circuit.
That did already exist though once. It was called the ESEA.
Yes, but it was much smaller than FACEIT's platform.
I mean, that's even the detailed bit to talk about. Aren't they merging the two products now? Isn't it essentially going to become one, right?
No, they're going to be two separate products, but we're obviously going to unlock the efficiencies between the two. So, for example, the anti-cheat teams are going to come together so that we can have a better anti-cheat, taking the best of FACEIT anti-cheat, ESA anti-cheat. Obviously, that's something the fans care a lot about. Then in terms of like user experience, we want to streamline that as well. So for example, we'll get to a point where you're going to have a unified user account between FACEIT and ESEA with all your stats and all the information and profile and so on in one place. And then eventually even have a unified subscription model where you can have one subscription that gives you full access to both platforms and full functionality on both platforms. So this is just like, some of the first steps that we're taking. And of course, I think the other big part is with the FACEIT platform, we are first and foremost like an open platform, right? So it's not just about like the competition, the tournaments that we organize, but we have tens of thousands of community organizers, all sorts of organizers that we support. And we're going to keep investing in supporting them. This goes from like, small local communities all the way to partners like Blast. So we actually are providing server technology, anti-cheat technology, and support to all the Blast events. And we plan to continue that. We don't want to discontinue that. We think that it's important for us to have a healthy ecosystem, have competition in the ecosystem. And that's what we're going to be promoting. In fact,
so a company that's basically the rival of Blast is also providing through a company within its portfolio the actual technical services that Blast runs on.
Let's also be real. They'll be buying Blast in the next 1 to 2 years.
Seems obvious. Yeah, I hope they buy everything just so it makes all the virtue signals.
Well, they said in the press release, the particulars were there that they wanted to spend 30 billion over the next 5 years. So they're just getting started.
Some of you are selling out your integrity too cheap. Just hold on a little bit. What about those fucking diamond hands? Hold.
No, be under no illusion as well. Like, I mean, you have to understand, we were nearly in a position where it was Tencent that did all this.
Well, they sort of did in certain esports.
Yeah,
I mean, let's not forget that they have a huge investment in mobile esports as well. They own all of Riot. They own like 40% of Epic or something like that. So
the joke is like the Chinese government actually told Tencent, like, will you just calm down with all that? And so that's why they actually haven't bought more stuff. And people don't know they were actually told they weren't allowed to make more games even at one point. It's true. It's actually a real thing that happened.
While the Chinese government just harvests their profits as well. So pretty messed up situation. So when we look at the actual structure of this new company, and when you talk about North America, now obviously that's going to be a big point, because I would say that one of the core problems with esports right now, with CSGO esports, is that Valve is not willing to invest in like grassroots actual esports scenes, which is part of the reason why North America fell apart in CSGO.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that. And the fact that we have this long-term horizon allows us to make those investments, because obviously like grassroots investments don't have direct return on investments as you would have on a big tournament or a tier 1 competition, right? So it's capital intensive, and but now with this new structure coming together, we do have the resources, the willingness to make those investments to further the scene for the next 3-5 years.
And what are the long-term goals when it comes, like, what's the vision that the new ESL FaceIt brand has? If you're going to be ambitious about the money that you're spending in the space and this enormous injection of cash, where do you see this all going?
Yeah, I think of course is to create like stable ecosystem across different titles, right? We obviously look at Counter-Strike as one example of an ecosystem that has a lot of good things, but also needs a lot of work still. So definitely Counter-Strike is a good place to start in terms of furthering the investment at the grassroots. I haven't even talked about like the tier 1 stuff, but of course there's going to be a lot of investment going towards improving the quality of the content rather than doing more broadcasts and more calendar space. It's more like quality over quantity investments. There's going to be a lot of investments in editorial and contents as well, so that we can finally, produce those nice pieces of content that can really enrich the entertainment experience of the fans watching, and it's not just like the usual broadcast where you're just like jumping from the analyst desk to the casters to the game to the casters to the analyst desk, but have actually like some meaningful content around it as well, and then the regional expansion as well. So we think in Counter-Strike there's definitely room to do a lot in terms of supporting other region. I think there's been some announcements around more initiatives in LATAM as well around this deal, and there's going to be a lot more coming up. Now, okay, I talked about Counter-Strike. You asked me about the broader company vision. I think the idea is, but the two things are not like too distant, because Counter-Strike is really an ecosystem where we have the strong synergies where all of the portfolio of big events that ESL has and all the grassroots that we have on our platform can really create a virtuous cycle where effectively we can connect more of the player development and talent development to big events and bring them to big events. And then we can use the big events also to promote more platform activity and drive users into the grassroots. Effectively, that's the model that we wanna take, and we wanna scale and replicate across different game titles. So that's the vision really. And ultimately. Yeah.
And the concrete part of that is like going into taking some of the amateur players, featuring them at esports events and show matches, offering rewards for people to watch esports on the FaceIt platform. So it's basically connecting everything in order to create a cycle of developing more competition and players on the platform.
At least you avoided saying the word metaverse, so I'll applaud you for that.
No metaverse, no.
I think I would have fucking thrown up if that got bandied around.
No one even knows what the fucking metaverse is. Anyway, I think what the concern for a lot of people, myself included, is about the CSGO circuit. Because I think that one of the criticisms, if you're an esports fan, has been of ESL, is that first off, they take up, in a space that's supposed to have multiple different operators, compared to Blast or Flashpoint, for example, ESL takes up like 40% of the given days in a calendar year. And that's before holidays, before player breaks, before other tournaments. My opinion is that a lot of these events, especially during the pandemic, were beefed up insanely in terms of format. It was basically just nonstop games. There was really no differentiation from one event to the next. They all just looked exactly the fucking same. There was very little content. It felt like ESL was just trying to get as many viewed hours as possible at the lowest price possible. And that one of the problems with the CSGO circuit, one of the fundamental issues, is that the storytelling is so bad. There isn't connective tissue across the entire circuit when it comes to content. It's hard for the average person, unless you're a really hardcore CSGO fan, to even know like what's important, when's the next event, where is it going to be broadcast. And my personal take is that it would be much better to slow down the pace of events and actually have a proper build in terms of content and hype into those events and do real storytelling, because CSGO is the best esport in terms of viewer experience. It is the best by a long shot in terms of the big esports right now, because the barrier to entry is so low. Ergo, if you had better storytelling, you could probably get more fans involved.
Who knows? Maybe ESL now can even pay people talent rates from the last half a decade.
Yeah, they were up to some shenanigans.
Chance would be a fine thing. Chance would be a fine thing.
So, like, what's your reaction to that? Because I know, Nick, like, obviously we've worked together on Flashpoint because FACEIT was the production operator of Flashpoint. And so what is that, like, what is your take on ESL? Because I think that many people feel that way about ESL's productions. And what we saw before the pandemic was like, oh, we're going to have this in Malta and we're just going to centralize everything. And then we'll just fly out to the cities for the playoffs for our various like IEM or ESL 1 events. And which was also, a cost saving measure. But I'm in favor of closed studio shows, for group stages. I think it's the best way to operate things. So I don't really care about that. But yeah, what's your take?
I think I would agree with you, and at the same time, obviously having had a chance to spend more time with the guys at ESL and understand a bit better how they approach things, I also do understand why they made some of those choices in the past.
Enlighten us.
I mean, I kind of like hinted at it, right? Like, if you're under immense pressure for short-term results, then you're gonna choose a path that is different from the path that you can choose when you have an abundance of resources and you need to build for the future. That's a key point, really. And I think on a lot of this, those choices. They're not like done in a in a happy way, right? Like I'm sure I know that they always had the inspiration to invest more into the content, into the editorial, into the building the storylines, and even like into at least recently create a more inclusive circuit and ecosystem. Like that's something we actually hinted at in the announcement. But ESL has been one of the promoters with other big organizers like Blaster, Lad, and so on in trying to come together and have a unified ranking system that can work across all the different events, right?
Are you really bigging up the ESL ranking right now? That one where they got 5 players who've never played together and they made a team and they were top 20. What are you referring to here? Like, what ranking are we talking about?
Are you saying they're going to make a consolidated
it's a future project?
There's an intention. There's an intention, to have a neutral, for the
whole circuit and everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is by the way something that Flashpoint, was trying to do with the CSPPA as well. And it is absolutely necessary because, like, the problem with the ESL ranking is obviously it's incredibly biased to ESL events, which makes it more or less useless for determining, on an open circuit, which teams are the best. So hopefully there will be, and I assume that will all be everything will be transparent about that ranking in terms of how it's calculated and the way that it is evaluated against the broader circuit, including other non-ESL events.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.